We got some interesting polling out just this morning from CNN with what they call trial heats of different contenders, Republican primary contenders, how they would fare trying to get at who is the most electable on the Republican side. Let's put this up on the screen. Steve Kornacki tweeted this out, but this is a CNN poll. So you've got Trump v. Biden. Trump is at 47, Biden's at 46. DeSantis v. Biden. It's basically tied. So actually Trump is, I mean, this is all within the margin of error, these two. So you could say they're basically the same. But if you take the numbers at face value, Trump actually does a little better against Biden than DeSantis does. The standout one here is Nikki Haley, who wins by a 6-point margin in this trial heat. So Haley's at 49 and Biden's at 43. Pence is at 46 and Biden's at 44. So he does a little better than Trump. Again, these are small differences, but important. Tim Scott, 46, Biden 44, so same as Mike Pence. Biden beats Vivek Ramaswamy, 46-45. Again, that basically you put that at a jump ball. And Chris Christie does relatively well, 44%, Biden 42%. But the real standout candidate here that looks a little bit different and who I'm sure will be happy to make a very assertive case that she is the electable candidate is Nikki Haley at 49% and Joe Biden at 43%, which tells you, certainly her first debate performance did her some favors with the general public. And I also think it's funny, Saagar, like, Nikki Haley, you can't really classify her as a moderate in any real sense of the word, but because you have the media just like basically asserting this person is a moderate, people effectively believe it and are like, oh, she seems reasonable.
Here's my takeaway. I wouldn't even put the Haley thing in there. The margin of error on this thing is 3.5. You know what I'm seeing? Generic R beats Biden and or ties Biden. That's a disaster for Biden. We've got a generic Republican here, which is effectively, if you put Trump and DeSantis and Ramaswamy and all these people together and you're tied within the margin of error or it's that close, Haley's slightly outside of the margin of error there. Every single one of them either beats Biden or is tied with Biden. That's terrible for Biden. I mean, because it's one of those where the Biden case was, and especially why the media and everybody else wants Trump in many ways to be the nominees, because they're like, oh, well, he's the only one that, he's the weakest Republican in this field. No, I think that Biden himself is weak, and it shows that even a generic R, regardless of baggage, whatever that is, it's plus or minus not nearly as much as a lot of people would like to think, which means that people are so dissatisfied with the current status quo, they are willing to look anybody else and give them a chance. That's really what I read into it. We're seeing every single candidate either tie or come within a point of this person in the margin. I'm like, that's really bad.
I do think the Nikki Haley thing is interesting, though, because she does stand out here as having the most significant margin over Biden. I mean, 6 percentage points. It's outside the margin of error. It's very different than, the Trump and DeSantis who are basically tied with him. And what I think it's a real problem for, it's a real problem for DeSantis, because key to his pitch was electability. And he is, at best, no more electable than Trump. And at worst, Trump actually does a little bit better than him. And in terms of the donor class, there was a big report this week about how, what was it, like 60% of Ron DeSantis's big money donors have moved on. The candidate who's got all the media love coming out of the Republican debates was Nikki Haley. Certainly seems like Rupert Murdoch and his empire are giving her a very, very hard look. A lot of, media love and acclaim for her coming out of that debate. And so, she has come up in the polls. I mean, she was the person. Vivek didn't end up really getting a bump out of
it was all Trump support.
Out of the polls after that primary debate, because I think you're right. I think the people who liked his performance and said he won the debate, they're already supporting Donald Trump. So he didn't actually grow very much out of that. But Nikki Haley was the person who most consistently across the polls got somewhat of a bump to challenge DeSantis's number 2 position. And so for that slice of the electorate that's looking for a Trump alternative, for whom electability is important, this is going to be a very important metric for them. Now, as I have said a million times ad nauseum, I think Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee absent some unforeseen circumstance. However, if there is some unforeseen circumstance, it will matter who has pulled themselves into that number 2 position. And Nikki Haley, based on, a media effort to really cheerlead her performance there and a lot of media comfort, especially conservative media comfort, with her political ideology and positions, is increasingly challenging DeSantis in that number 2 slot.
Yeah, that's a great way to read it too, is how bad this is for DeSantis, where if every single other person in the GOP race can say, I also have a credible chance of beating Biden, and especially somebody like Haley or Scott or Ramaswamy, then why are you running, dude? And now it actually takes away the two-man race. The way that we would originally cover the race, the GOP race, is it's Trump, and then it was DeSantis, and then there's everybody else. And then Ramaswamy started to kick up to his heels. Now you got Haley coming up there as well. Now it's like a 3 or 4-way tie for number 2, depending on which state that you're looking at and the overall number. That's really bad. And actually, it only helps Trump because Trump is sitting pretty above all of them at 60%.
True.
And he's like, oh, all these little kids are squabbling for my number 2. And it's like, okay, that's cute. You know, it only elevates his position as the front runner to have multiple quote unquote credible alternatives, as opposed to the one credible alternative where like, this is the guy who actually could be able to do it. So that's a great way to read it. But man, the weakness for Biden in this is just stunning. It's stunning to look at. I mean, that you're losing to every single one of these guys, shocking.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say on the other side, just to make the other case, is that Democrats outperformed the polls in the midterms.
Yeah, look, let's lay that out.
And they've outperformed the polls in the special elections this year. And it seems like abortion is more of a factor for voters than even is showing up in the polls. So I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, it's a slam dunk for Republicans on the other side. I don't think that's true whatsoever. I still think that Biden, just being the incumbent president and given what we've seen with abortion, I still believe that he likely has the edge for re-election, very dependent on economic conditions ultimately. But the fact that he is an incumbent president, the fact that he's running most likely against, Donald Trump, who's facing 91 different charges, and that everybody hated, January 6th and the chaos and all of the baggage that Trump brings to it, that it's a jump ball is really embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually put it mostly at 50-50 just because of uncertain economic conditions. We have no idea. I mean, the price of diesel right now is going through the roof. I think inflation is going to come. You're not roaring back per se. It's going to remain sticky. Who the hell knows what's going to go on with Ukraine? We know that Biden's not going to change his policy anytime soon. You're really just one geopolitical disaster or $5 to $6 a gallon away from total loss to wipe out in the general election. So it's one of those where, considering the uncertainty that remains ahead, specifically economically, and we could go into a full-blown recession. We could get to 5-6% unemployment with persistent inflation. That's really bad. On top of that, with a geopolitical crisis and high gas prices, all of these are within the probability window of not that far away. These are not like tail end type things. These are just 1, 2. We're looking like you go 10% in this direction, 10% the other way. As I've said too, you can give the other side of that where maybe things calm down in Ukraine, something goes down, gas goes to 250. Inflation starts to go down, unemployment remains steady, all of that, the economy actually looks okay. Sure, I could see him getting reelected too.
Unfortunately, I don't think that if the status quo remains in Ukraine, I would like for people to care more about it in terms of a voting issue. I don't really think that. If it maintains in this sort of like status quo area that it is right now, I think the economic conditions are likely way more important.
The only reason I put it in there is it's like Afghanistan. Nobody gave a shit about Afghanistan until everybody cared about Afghanistan. So you're only one major news event away from it dominating everything, and that's always been my issue with Ukraine. I'm like, you don't know what you're setting yourself up for. Yeah, it's a slow burn now, 18 months, but then look, one thing goes south, nuclear power plant explodes, gets bombed accidentally, one F-16 just happens to bomb Russia. We're in a whole other situation, a whole new world. The whole globe, the entire earth is captivated by that news. That can easily lose you an election.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, there's a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of crazy things that no one could imagine that are going to transpire between now and election day, and they could cut in either direction.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.